We are developers and we build web apps. Now, when it comes to the technologies we can use, we're in luck because there has never been a time in history with more options than today. From TypeScript to JavaScript, from Astro to Next.js, from React to Vue. For every challenge you might have, for every way you want to solve it, there is a solution for you. Now, when it comes to the infrastructure, we're also in luck because if we need a database, we can spin one right up in under 3 minutes. If we need a backend, we can bring one up and we don't even need to care about what kind of server runs it. If we need e-commerce solutions, then we have everything for any part of the process. If we need object storage and media hosting, we're in luck. If we need auth management or user management system, everything is as simple as integrating with an API. So if we say wanted to build our own version of TikTok, all we'll have to do is to build a mobile application, bring up a database, have media hosting solution, and user management. So what if we decided to do this right now, right here on stage, in under an hour? And what if we decided to use Wix to do all that? So good morning, everyone. Welcome to our talk, How to Build Your Next Full Stack Application and Why you should use Wix Headless. My name is Roy Sommer. I've been with Wix for the past 7 years. I started as a full stack developer. I later on moved to lead a team and then a group. And right now I'm a developer advocate for the Wix developer platform, which means that my job is to tell the world about our offerings for developers. And today we're going to learn about Wix Headless, which is one of the cooler offerings we have for developers. Um, Essentially, what we're giving with Wix Headless is the option to take the robust backend that we build that powers millions of Wix websites and be able to connect to it from any application that we might want to build, whether it's a Next.js application, React Native mobile application, and we even have one user that created an Alexa skill that uses Wix Headless as their backend. Today, we're going to build a TikTok clone that on one hand has a React Native application, on the other hand uses different Wix solutions to power its backend. The first is Wix Data. We're going to use Wix Data to store the collection of our videos. We're going to use Wix Members to allow users to log in and register. And we're going to use Wix Media to allow users to create their own videos and host them on Wix. Now we're going to do this in 3 steps. The first would to show a videos feed. We're going to create a collection of videos and we're going to show it in our application. The second, we're going to allow users to register and log in using Wix members. And then we're going to let users upload videos using Wix Media and Velo as our backend. And we're going to start with showing the videos feed. Before we get into the code, it's going to be a live coding session. Before we get into the code, just a few words about how Headless works. So a Headless site is basically a normal Wix site that you can create from manage.wix.com. And what we're going to do, we're going to create the Wix site. We're going to create a collection on Wix data that contains a list of videos. It's going to contain the title, the name of the uploader, and the URL of the video. And we're going to connect to a React Native application using the Wix SDK. So let's get started. Okay, so this is my Wix account. I'm going to create a new Wix site using a black canvas. Just a note, here we're working on a new onboarding process for Headless. So it's going to be something that's more tailor-made for developers, and it's going to release in a couple of weeks. But right now, I'm just creating a normal site that we're going to use as the project for our application. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to enable coding, which will enable us to write backend code and use Wix data. And we're going to publish the site just once. The URL doesn't really matter. So it will be online. Okay. We're going to go to the dashboard, and we're going to create our collection of videos that we're going to display on our application. So we're going to go to CMS right here. We're going to create a new collection, and we're going to call it Reels. And as you can see, our database, our collection is ready. We already have a title column. We're going to keep that. We're going to add another column called user. It's going to be of type text. And another column for the video. So here we have rich media types for columns. We're going to choose video, and we're going to call this column video. And now that we have our schema, our table set up, we can put some data inside of it. So we're going to go to Giphy, my source for short GIFs. We're going to take this GIF. We're going to head back here. We're going to give it title. Jason loves you. I'm going to call it test, the user test. And as for the video, we can see that since this is a video column, we already are connected to the Media Manager plugin on the UI. So we can just go click on the column, click on Upload Media. We're going to call it MP4 instead of GIF and import it. So now we have a basic database collection set up, and we need to connect it to our application. So let's dive into the application itself. The application is a simple React Native application that uses Expo. If you want to get started on Expo, you can go to expo.dev. We're not going to dive too deep into how React Native works, but if you're a React developer, you're going to feel right at home because all we're going to do here is React code. Now, before we get started with the with coding, so we're going to run yarn start, and we're going to connect the application from our phone. Okay, so that's our app. As you can see, there's nothing here other than the two tabs at the bottom. We have a home tab and a create tab, and we're going to implement both of them. And we're going to start with the home tab, and it's going to be here under the index file. And I'm just going to zoom in a little bit. Now, the way that the Wix SDK works is that we have the package, the Wix SDK package. This is the core package that we need to use in order to integrate with Wix. Think of it like the package you use to integrate with Firebase or with any other solution. It has two main components. The first one is the auth part. The auth part tells the SDK two things. The first is what site we're working with, what headless site we're working with. And the second is what is the identity of the one who's making the requests. Now, there are two main options. One of them is using an API key, which gives you admin access to everything. But we're going to use another option called OAuth, which allows us to identify as a site member or a site visitor. So basically, when we make a request from the application, it's going to be identified as either a visitor if we're anonymous or a member if we're logged in. And we're going to see how we're going to log in a couple of minutes. The second component of the SDK is the modules. Now, modules are multiple packages that provide a fully typed APIs that can interact with their counterparts on Wix. Modules like bookings, like stores, like Wix data, basically just a package with many methods and types. We're going to use the Wix data module in order to consume the collection we just created on the site and display it on our app. Let's get to it. So we're going to need three packages: Wix SDK, Wix SDK React, which is a wrapper that allows us to use hooks with React, and Wix data. We already have those installed. What we need to do is to set them up at the root of our application. So we're going to import the provider from SDK React. And as we reviewed before, we need to provide an auth object. So we're going to use the auth strategy, the auth method that allows us to identify as members. And we're going to need a string called client ID. Now, where do we get that? In order to get our client ID, we need to go back to the site we just created. We need to go to Settings, Headless Settings, and create a new headless project. So you're going to click Setup Project, and we're going to say My Cool React Native App. I'm going to click that. So we got the client ID here. I'm going to take it back to our app. And that's basically all we need to get the SDK started. Now we need to make a request using the SDK using the data module. So let's go back to the home page here. We have a ready-made component called feed page that expects an array of reels, each reel containing title, user, and video that are so conveniently similar to the columns we just created in the database. So we're going to create a state for that. By the way, in production, don't do what I'm about to do now. Just use React query or something like that. We're going to use the reels here. And we're going to add an effect that when the user visits the page, we're going to fetch those reels from the server using the SDK. Sync function. This is right now is going to be empty. Now, as you can see, we don't have anything just yet, so it's just going to show this loading screen. Time to get our reels. So as we said before, we need the Wix data module. Lucky for us, we have a use module hook. We use Wix modules that comes from the React SDK. We need to provide the Wix data module. Now, under Wix data, we have multiple modules from Wix data. We're going to use the items module that allows us to query items from a collection. Now that we have the module set up, we need to use the module. So we're going to await modules.items already fully typed here, dot query data items. And here we're going to need to provide the data collection ID. Now, this is the ID of our collection inside our website, our Wix headless site. So we need to get this ID. Add into the Reels collection, and I'm gonna take a look at collection settings. And this is the collection ID. So we're gonna copy that. By the way, we can take the chance to take a look at the permissions, and we can see that this collection is public to read. So everyone can read from it, but no one can upload or add items into the collection. That's important because we're not going to let people upload videos just yet. So we have the data collection ID. Now we can add some filters, but we want everything. So we're just going to run find, which will yield the results here. Final thing we need to do, we're going to take the items field from the results. We're going to map them. It's a list of items that return from our database. For each item, we need the title, right? We need the user and the video. You can see that the types are already completing for us. So each item has a data field. Now, the data field is untyped because the SDK doesn't really know the schema of our collection. So we're just going to have to go back to the collection and get the field IDs from here. So we can find the field ID of the title here. I'm going to copy it. Same thing about the user and the video. Item the data.video. We're going to save that. And now you can see that it's almost working. We can see the name of the user test. We can see Jason loves you, but we can't see the video for some reason. And this is due to the fact that when we store videos in our collection, they're stored in a URI format that we can't really use. We need to transform it into a URL that actually contains the video file. So lucky for us, there's an easy way to do that. There's an auxiliary class called media from the Wix SDK. And we're going to use this media here, media.getVideo URL. I'm going to provide the URI from the database, from the collection, .url. And now it's working. So as you can see, it took us less than 10 minutes to get a working application displaying videos up and running. But that's not enough. We want to upload our own videos as well. So we're going to tackle the next part, which is registration and logging in, again, using Wix members. We're going to dive into manage login, which more or less works like that. We have our application. Our application redirects the user to the login page on Wix using an iframe or a web view. The user logs in, they log in, and then they are redirected back into the application with their credentials. In order to implement that, there is a way to do that with the SDK, but there is an open source library that allows us to do the logging in on the Wix login component and just use a hook that opens the modal whenever we want to log in. Let's go back to our code. We're going to go back to the root of our application, and we're going to add the Wix login component. Now, the Wix login needs two props. Let's go back here. We need the client, the Wix client, the one we created here with the provider. And we need an onLogin complete. So let's start with the client. If we want to get the client that we created on the root, we can consume it using the use Wix hook that just gives us the entire client. We're going to put it right here. Now, on login complete, we can see that we get it's a callback that gets something that is called a token or tokens. And the tokens are the identifiers of the users. So once we're done with the login flow, the tokens are the thing we need in order to identify as the user. Now, since we created the used the auth strategy, we can consume it as well from here. Auth equal use Wix auth. And the callback here is going to be once we have the tokens, just go to the auth, set tokens. From this point onwards, whenever the user logs in or when they log in, we just put the tokens in the auth object, and every subsequent request will have the identity of the logged in member. Now, finally, what we want to do is to sort of gatekeep the create page, the one that we can see here. We want that if a member tries to access this page, we're going to check if they're logged in. And if they're not logged in, we're going to prompt them to either register or log in. So again, in order to check if a user is logged in, we need the auth object. So use Wix auth. And we're going to have a use effect here that looks at auth logged in. This tells us if the user is logged in. Now, if the user is not logged in, we're going to use the login hook, use Wix login. We're going to say login dot open login modal. Let's see that it works. We're going to go to the create page. And now we're going to have an error. Now, this error is OK, because as we said before, we are redirecting to Wix, and then Wix has to redirect back to us. But how does Wix know to trust our URL? It could be anyone trying to steal credentials. So we need to tell Wix that the URL we're telling it to go back to can be trusted. Now, this is exactly what the error here says. We're just going to take this URL, exp, and tell Wix to trust it. We're going to take it from here, from the console. We're going to go back to our Wix site. We're going to go back to settings, head the settings once again. And here we have allowed authorization redirect URIs. These are the URLs that Wix can trust to redirect back to. So we're going to add the URL here. We're going to save it. We're going to refresh the application. I'm going to go click Create. And now we can see that everything's working. So sign up with email. I don't want to spam anyone, so I'm just going to create a burner email. And the password is going to be 123456. Don't tell my boss. Sign up. Let's hope that I'm not identified as a robot. Okay, good. So now when we access the Create tab, we can see that we're no longer prompted to log in. And that basically means that we're logged in right here. So that was the second part of our application. And here's the interesting part. So creating a database collection is easy. Allowing users to log in is apparently easier than it might seem. The third part is allowing users to upload their own videos. So in order to do that, we're going to need two things. The first, we're going to need to expose an API. Now, why is that? We don't want just anyone to be able to upload any file to our system. We need some sort of an API that to gatekeep that and allow them to and make sure that they're a logged in member of our application. So that's the prepare real upload part. And the second is once the file is uploaded, we want to add it into the database collection. So this is the on-file uploaded event that is fired from the backend when the file is done uploading. Now, we're going to use two features of Velo here. One of them is called HTTP functions, and the other is called backend events. And basically, they will allow us to create this API and consume this event. So this is the one thing we're going to use the editor for. We also have the GitHub integration and CLI to do this locally, but be much quicker right now if we did it from the editor. We're going to go to backend and public. I'm going to click this plus button right here and expose side APIs. This already creates a boilerplate for a file called HTTP functions. We can see that an HTTP function is just a JavaScript function. In our case, it's get multiply. Get is the HTTP method, and multiply is the name of the function. It gets a request, and it returns a response. Now we have the code here. We have two files here. The first is HTTP functions. We're going to see the functions that we're going to implement right here. So basically, it's a function called post, which this is the HTTP method post, prepare real upload. It's going to start by generating an upload ID, a random upload ID. And then it's going to check that I'm logged in. So it's going to use the Wix members module, .current member, .get member. And if I'm not logged in, it's going to block the request. So this is basically what we have to log in for. Second thing is going to take the title from the body. If there's no title, it's going to block once again. And then it's going to use the Wix Media API to get an upload URL. Now, an upload URL is a one-time URL that we can give to our users. They can upload their file to this URL. And then once they're done, this URL is no longer useful. So we're going to create the upload URL. It's going to put the file inside a folder called user content. It's going to be a video type. The file name is going to be the upload ID we just created. And we're also going to provide the context. The context is a set of properties that will be passed with the file uploaded event so we can identify the file once it's done uploading. So we're going to add a type called user upload, the upload ID, the title, and the name of the user. We're going to take the nickname from the user profile. Once we're done, we're going to return the upload URL back to the user. So this is the API we're going to expose. The second thing we want to do is to handle the file once it's done uploading. Once it's done uploading, we want to store this file in our database collection. So we're going to go back again. Just copy this. We're going to go back here, click plus, and handle backend events. We're going to have one event handler here called Wix Media Manager on file uploaded. Now, this event will be fired once the file is done uploading. We're going to extract from the context the upload ID, title, user type, ensure that everything is in line. And if everything is okay, we're going to use Wix data.insert into the Reels collection, the title, the user, and the video. That's on one end. So we're going to publish our site. Okay, good. Then we're going to go back to the code of our application and integrate with it. Okay, let's go back to the create page. Lucky enough, we have another ready-made component called create page. Now this component expects two props, upload reel and on upload completed. Upload reel is an async function that gets the title and the video file and needs to do the uploading. And we got on upload completed, where we'd like to send the user back to the feed once their upload is completed so they can see the new video that they just uploaded. So we're just going to use the React router, use router. And on upload completed, we're going to say router dot push and go back to the feed. Okay, now we need to implement this upload reel function. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to call our API and get the upload URL. Now, in order to call our APIs, we don't need to construct a URL. We have a module for that as well, just as we did with Wix data. We have Wix HTTP functions. So we're going to consume the module from here, use Wix modules. From the Wix HTTP functions, we're going to import the functions module. And now we're going to call our function using the module. So const res equals await function modules dot functions dot post, right? Because the HTTP method is post. We're going to pass the name of the function, which is prepare real upload. And we're going to need the body. Now the body, we know that it expects the title field in the body. Lucky enough, we have this right here. We're going to say body json.stringify title. Once we have that set up, we're going to extract the upload URL from the JSON. Await rest JSON. This is just a fetch response object. It's a standard object. Don't need to learn any new APIs for that. So you get the upload URL. And then we have another auxiliary function we prepared in advance, upload video, which takes the file path, the local file, video file, and upload URL, which is the one we got from the server. We're going to await it and finally return success. So basically, this small function will allow us to upload the video we just created. Again, we're going to get the upload URL. We're going to upload the video to the URL, and then we're just going to send the user back to the feed. So let's see how it works. Okay, so we got JSON here. We're going to go to the create page. It's going to prompt us to log in. Lucky for us, we created a super secured account. So we're going to go with Royce +1 at wix.com. And the password. Now that we're logged in, we can see that here. So let's try taking a video. How about you join me right here? Say hi to the camera. We're going to call this video I guess. And we're going to click upload now. Let's hope that everything is working. Okay, looks promising. Let's see that it does redirect us back to the feed page. And time, 30 minutes, and we're done. Okay, so the way it works, we explained it, so we're not going to go over it again. Just to reiterate, what we did was to build a fully working web application using Wix as our backend. We can see that we have database collections, we have user management, we have media hosting, we have backend code powered by Velo. Um, Basically, what you get is a backend as a service solution that has many of the features you might look for baked right into it. We have the dev.wix.com website where you have everything you need to know about all our options for developers, whether you want to build a website, an app, an integration for Wix, or a custom headless project. And also for the SDK itself, we have everything here. You can go to the SDK, you can select any of the modules and learn about them. So if we use Wix data, there's the introduction here and all the different functions you can find on a Wix data. We also have REST APIs and GraphQL. So if you favor any of those, you can just use them. And instead of the SDK, they are the same APIs all around. So I think that's basically it. Again, we're always improving the experience. So, and you have some feedback, let us know and we'll pass it to the right teams. The new onboarding flow coming soon. When you can find the repository with the code we just created here on stage today under get real demo on github.com. And I think that's it, guys.